8.5 is a lot, though. We've seen they have not been able to cover the spread when it's like more than a touchdown or a lot of these double-digit spreads that they've been having all season long. I feel like Jacksonville could play them close. What is your expectation for this one?
I feel the same way you do. All right, let's get a couple things out of the way first. I'm not exactly sure where this total opened, but I saw it at 51 and a half, and immediately my visceral reaction was over. And now we see it at 52. Now it's at 53. So I think anyone who saw that, they're pretty spot on that, and for a couple reasons. I mean, we'll talk about the Kansas City offense whenever we need to, but we already understand what that is. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, he has a bunch of weapons to throw it to in the pass game. The running backs are
Mm-hmm.
effective in the run and pass games. I mean, so that offense, it is what it is, and we don't really worry about Jacksonville putting up enough resistance to kind of hold them down. And so, really, when you want to look
Mm-hmm.
at it, you say, what is that Kansas City defense going to present? And I think the interesting ways to look at that is the two games that they played against the Denver Broncos, where I think they scored 21 in one game, 24 in the other. Russell Wilson accounted for 3 touchdowns in each game. In one game, he had 3 passing touchdowns. Another, he had 1 passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns. We can see Trevor Lawrence putting up similar results. Is that correct? And then also, you in Texans, where I believe in that game where they pushed them to overtime, they scored 24 points. And that was one thing
Yeah.
where the Kansas City Chiefs were always allowing teams who I felt were inferior to them, allowing them to just hang around late into the games and then find a way to win, whether it's like the last half of the fourth quarter and overtime. So when you look at it from that perspective and the way that they performed against the spread, it tells you that minus 8.5 is likely too many points. So if you want to bet on Jacksonville plus 8.5, I'm not mad at that. But we also know that Kansas City, they can pile on points in a hurry. The way that Seattle San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
game played out, where San Francisco pulled away late in the game, you can see Kansas City doing that too. So that's where that gets a little dangerous. So if you want to lean anywhere on this one, I would say the over. But this Jacksonville Jaguars, like the narrative to me is pretty intriguing. I'm gonna throw it over to Jared after this because the way they started off this playoffs being the wild card team, the number four seed,
Yeah.
reminds me of Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals last year when they pulled
Mm-hmm.
off the win against the Raiders. Then you go and you face a number one seed. I mean, obviously the Kansas City Chiefs are built way differently than Tennessee, but they can pull off a similar string of victories and somehow sneak their way into the Super Bowl, especially the way Kansas City has been playing at key moments in the season where they haven't been the dominant team that would just put their opponent away. Thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, Jared, I look at this one too, and 8.5 is a lot of points. Jacksonville's 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games. You look at their schedule, yeah, they haven't necessarily played the best defenses. They've been averaging just under 30 points per game during the 6 game win streak. The one thing that worries me about the Kansas City Chiefs right now is their red zone defense. They're allowing a touchdown scored on 67% of trips to their red zone, which is 31st in the NFL. Only the Colts were worse this season. So when you're not holding teams to field goals, touchdowns, it's hard to cover a spread, especially when it's as much as 8.5. How do you see this game playing out? And do you kind of think that Jacksonville maybe could have the backdoor cover?
Yeah, I do think that could be the vibe here. There's a couple of things that are interesting. First, let's start big picture. The trend you will
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot this week is Andy Reid off the bye. You will hear that probably more from the mainstream media, maybe us included, than most other trends this week. And it's fair. He's 21-3 off the bye, 8-1 in the Mahomes era, but just 5-4 against the spread. And they've actually failed to cover in their last 2 playoff games off the bye. The divisional round against Cleveland, when they did have a lead and then Mahomes got hurt, and then Cleveland kind of came back and made it close. They won by 5, didn't cover the spread, and in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, when obviously that game was not close by any stretch of the imagination. So there are some holes to be poked in the Andy Reid off a bye, trend that you're going to hear a lot this week. So let's just move that to the side because I think it has absolutely no bearing on this game. I think the thing that does have a bearing on this game is that first matchup. The Chiefs won by 10. They covered. Despite the fact that they had 3 fewer possessions than the Jags. Kansas City turned it over twice, and they recovered an onside kick,
Wow.
a surprise onside kick. So I think Mahomes is going to have a lot of success in this game. He threw for over 300 yards. Kansas City had, again, 486 total yards with 3 fewer possessions than Jacksonville in that game. To cover the spread when you're basically a -3 turnover, 2 turnovers,
Mm-hmm.
and then the onside kick, you basically lost 3 possessions. So I think Kansas City is going to have a lot of success moving the ball in this game. But I also think the Jags are as well. I think the one specific angle, really, really micro level I like in this game is Travis Kelce. Jags are 32nd in DVOA against tight ends this year. They really struggled to defend Gerald Everett last week. 7 targets, 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. And oh, by the way, when you get to the playoffs, Travis Kelce is, as Tank likes to say, that dude. I mean, the numbers for Kelce in the playoffs are absurd. He's had at least 7 targets and at least 95 yards in 6 straight postseason games. He has scored a touchdown in 5 of the last 6 postseason games. The only one he didn't score a touchdown in was that absurd blowout to the Bucs in the Super Bowl when nobody on the Chiefs scored a touchdown. So I think the Jaguars, not only does the matchup tell me Travis Kelce is going to have a big game, Travis Kelce's postseason stats and how much Patrick Mahomes relies on him tells me Kelce's the guy to bet here on the Chiefs side. The spread's probably fair. I can see the Jags covering in the first half and then tailing off late, and Kansas City gets into that high gear. I'm not very interested in laying 8.5 points in a playoff game. The Chiefs are just 10-18 against the spread when the spread is over a touchdown. So the Mahomes tax is expensive. I think the best angle in this game is points, the over. You've lost a little value now that it's moved to 53, or Travis Kelce, receptions, yards, touchdowns, however you want to play it. I think Travis Kelce, to me, is the one betting angle in this game I really like.